It's Wednesday, March 26, 2025. Let us gather together and experience the goodness of God. Pastor Trey Comstock. We'll begin with our scripture of the week, Luke chapter 15, verses 1 through 3, and then verses 11b through 32. Then Pastor Scott Katcha, Pastor Emma Larson, and I will talk scripture, and more specifically about the parable of the prodigal sons. There are two of them. There are two sons, and they are both have their challenges. But first, a reading from Luke chapter 15, verses 1 through 3, and verses 11b through 32. Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to him, and the Pharisees and scribes were grumbling, saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." So he told them this parable. Then Jesus said, "There was a young man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me.' So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would have gladly filled himself with the pods the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, 'How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough to spare? But here am I, dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired hands.' So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slaves, 'Quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and get the fatted calf and kill it. And let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now his elder son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the slaves and asked him what was going on. He replied, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf because he got him back safe and sound.' Then he became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, 'Listen, for all these years I have been working like a slave for you, and I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you have never given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came back, and who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him.' And the father said to him, 'Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found.'" The thing that I always remember, that I always notice about this scripture each time I reread it, is how much of the text is the interaction between the father and the other brother.
Yeah.
Not the brother we think about. I think a lot about the dissolute living part of it and the return, right? And it's wonderful, right? It's this wonderful scene. One time I made y'all eat, we found what these pods were, and I made y'all eat them, if you remember.
The carrot pods, yep.
Yeah, we've eaten them. They were
They're not
good.
appetizing.
They're not good. They're not good.
Nope.
I too would go home. They're kind of gross. They were being pitched as like a health food for a minute. They taste like a health food.
Like a bad health food.
Well, in the same way that, so Red Bull is deliberately formulated to taste like chemicals. They can make a drink that makes you sore on eagle's wings with enough caffeine to fell a horse, and they can make it not taste like chemicals. But when they tested that, people were like, well, I don't think it's working as much. It had the same caffeine and taurine and guarine content, but because it didn't taste like medicine, people thought it was less effective. Anyways,
it's burned. That means it's working.
That means it's working. This is the flavor people at Red Bull could make a better tasting drink. They are choosing not to, so you feel like you're getting something medicinal. That's what these pods taste like.
Yeah.
It's bad. But that's where, like, again, and I teach on this passage, I don't know, every few years, right? But every time I am surprised by, if you actually run the, like, who gets the most lines, who gets the most dialogue, a lot of time gets spent with the older brother.
But it's the other way around when you look at, like, the artwork and the statues and the things that are in Renaissance paintings and beautiful art pieces throughout history. It's always the prodigal son returning. It's this embrace of the father and the son, and it's beautiful, right? But a lot of us don't pause to consider how much of the text is actually given to the other brother.
Well, so the amount of text that this becomes as much the parable of judgy church people than it is about God's abiding grace. And so we kind of, like, there's like a convenient out where if you were not some sort of dissolute sinner, if you've always just been kind of nice, this can just be like a celebratory thing, and then we move on. God's love is so wonderful. And you
look what he did for that person who went way far away.
Right, but this is in no way about me, because I didn't go far away. Oh, yes, it is about you. There's this entire other half of the story that is essentially the parable of the judgy church brother.
Which, again, the father went out. So we like to point out that the father was watching. And he saw when the son was still afar away, and he girded himself up, which was not normal for a father in his day to do.
And Chariots of Fire start playing.
He ran. The slow arms going out.
Slow motion.
And it's great. And there's a lot of great theology. He wraps the new robe around him, and Christ wraps us in his righteousness. And I love it.
It's lovely. Huh?
But
all of the above.
We don't point out that it was also out of character for the father, the host of the party, to leave and go hunt the other son who should have already been there.
Right.
And by the way, the fact that he wasn't there would have been an affront to the father.
Right.
And so he goes looking for him.
Well,
why aren't you enjoying it? Well, I've been here all alone, and you haven't even given me a fatted calf to have my friends over and have a big party. Why can't we do a party for me and my friends? Everything I have is at your disposal. It's yours. What are you whining about?
It's all your party, buddy.
We're having a party right now, and you could have brought all your friends, but you're out here. For all we know, his friends were actually in the party.
Probably.
Right? This is not a huge community. His friends are probably already in there. I mean, I'm just amazed this guy has friends. Like, this is just a really, like, but this weird, like, again, the lost found narrative of the younger brother is this tremendously powerful testimony to God's love.
Yes.
There is this wonderful, like, two versions of how a church can respond to people. Yes. You can be the older brother, or you can be the party, right? Because if you add, I this is probably not an original thought, but I was trying to, like, help a group of people doing prison ministry wrap their heads around what they were doing.
Yeah.
And they were trapped in this, like, real classic, like, well, I just don't feel like the young men are responding to us. And I'm like, well, they don't have to. Like, they don't have to respond. They like, we're doing this from love for them, and we're doing this because, like, it means something to them. Like, this was juvenile offenders, and so, like, they're teenagers, man. Like, what response? Well, they're like, they're not. They're not like hugging us. I'm like, well, I hope they aren't. But anyways, that's separate. They shouldn't be. It's a, but so I end up preaching like it's like 9 o'clock. We've gotten back to our home base. Everyone's dejected because it's this long day. And again, I want to be clear: the boys are the young men are just not responding. And you know, and I'm more pissed at the team than I am at the young men.
Yeah.
Again, who cares?
Right.
Like they don't know. The whole point is they don't owe us anything. That's welcome to ministry, y'all.
Yeah.
And so I
figure.
gave this, you know, I read this story. I didn't read the part. I know I did read the part about the brother, and I gave them like, hey, you can be the brother, or you can be the party. Let's be the party. And you know, I spent the rest of the weekend saying, hey, remember, we're the party. Remember, we're the party. Remember, we're the party. We're the party that celebrates that people who have been profoundly lost have an opportunity to be found because of the love of God. And God, we are not the ones who does the forgiving. We're not the ones who do the redeeming. That's God. What is the church? The church, when lived healthily, is the party. When lived unhealthily, is the other brother.
Right.
We're not even the ones to be doing any of the judging and calling out of anything anyway.
Right. Well, and as you rightly point out, Scott, like at this point, this older brother has affronted the father too.
Yeah.
And so it's not like he's like, I'm so blameless. You are not.
No.
I get that you didn't
go
anymore. Blow it on wine, women, and song, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. His words, prostitutes. Right? Like I get that, but like you are just being super judgy, and you are also not honoring your father.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we skip over that because so often we hear this in church and we might be, oh, yes, when I was a prodigal, God brought me back and now I'm so much better. And now you're Bubba outside getting upset about who's coming in at the wrong point or, oh, my gosh, lock the doors. We can't have people off the street coming walking into service or whatever weirdness, you know?
Yeah.
I heard a story about this that just broke my heart, like within the past week, and I'm going to super anonymize this. But a church that is experiencing tremendous growth at the moment.
All right.
Their leadership is really unhappy and putting a lot of pressure on the pastor to like drive more growth and push more. And actually like they're seeing like, you know, tremendous growth and it's like going really well. And this is a church that had a lot of struggles and is now like really doing great. And so this pastor that was talking to me was trying to drill down into why are these people still so unhappy? Why is this leadership so like not able to enjoy this tremendous growth that they have found? And it's because they don't like the people who are coming in and don't think that they're the right caliber of person to continue the ministries of the church. And I just wanted, like, all I could text back was like, I hurt for them. I am so sad for them. Like they couldn't enjoy, like they're living the good life. They are living the kinds of things that like a lot of churches in this day and age would kill for, that pray for. That like people are showing up and, you know, joining all the time and it's just all like going and all because like they focused on the right things and, you know, and they're doing this in like healthy ways and it's killer, right? Like it's just so stinking good. And this leadership team is just like, no, these are not the right type of people that are, we need to make sure that they are assimilating into our group and we need to keep growing so we can get the right kind of person. And I like y'all the brothers, man. Y'all the brother. Like y'all Bubba out in the outside whining about the goat. And this isn't like, oh, these people are so much more sinful. It's not even that, although that's a tale as old as Christian time. This is even like gnarlier and just weirder of like, well, these are not going to be the right type of people to continue our ministries. And like, can we ever be happy? Can we ever be happy that like anyone decide, I'm starting to sound like Lonnie from the Jesus People movie. Like, can you ever just be happy that people are here? When I like bring out my innate Lonnie-ness, it's that. It's just like, Jesus Christ, people. Like, it's a miracle anyone's here.
So,
choose or no.
Right.
As we know, ministry becomes awkward. Ministry gets to be where, you're sometimes helping people over and over, and they keep running back into the same, fire, the same issue. You help them out, and they come back.
Scott, this is how you and I got really good at breaking and entering, specifically.
Yes. Yes, it is. Skills you don't know you learn as a pastor, how to break into a house.
Or that you're going that me, lead pastor, is going to authorize you to shoot the door.
Which I did find another way, though it was probably the one time I would have been authorized to shoot anything, and I probably should have taken the chance. But I did find another way into said house. And for those that are wondering, going, "Oh my gosh, what?" It was a life check on an individual. It wasn't just random breaking and entering.
Right.
It was very important
medical situation type thing. But anyway, and so. We run into this of, well, we want a certain type of person because we need, people coming in that can pay more time so that we can pay the bills, and money isn't an issue. And yes, but if your call is, hey, come join us and join our church to help us pay the bills, that's not going to attract people. And that's not what God's called us to do anyway. And what we often miss that we've seen is you can do outreaches and do things for God in the right way. And though that particular event may not bring in new people, growth happens because that's just the way God works.
It was one of those like, we used to do these as a team. We used to do these multi-1,000-person outreaches in a town of 20,000 people. And it was just true insanity.
I mean, 2,000 people come through. Yes, because we had people clicking and counting. It was crazy.
Yeah, right. And it's massive traffic problems and just a night.
For the whole town. Yeah, massive.
It was
massively crazy.
And did we ever see those people again? Maybe not. Right? Like, I could never,
maybe the next
never
big
draw
event.
a straight line from the chaos of Pumpkin Patch and Fall Festival to members of a church. But somehow at that time, the church grew.
Right.
Because we were focused on being a place where people could find good vibes and community.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that meant you just came and participate in our fall festival, which, by the way, is you experiencing love of God through us, whether you know it's that or not. In some ways, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
But because we had that kind of open posture, not kind of open, but we had this absurdly open posture.
Oh, yeah.
Just like,
Absurd.
come on down. We bought our own bounce houses, giant commercial bounce house. Because at some point we got tired of renting them.
Yeah.
But yeah, the church grew because we had that open posture, of which these giant outreach events were one example of, and kind of a core demonstration of an open posture. But it was indicative and a part of an overall open posture that did welcome new people into the fold.
Right. Well, and I think that's so much a part of it, because it wasn't you as senior pastor leading the charge on this outreach either. You were back in the office handing out buckets of candy, right? Like refilling candy buckets.
He was bucket refill central, which incidentally, that was the job I took on our fall festival.
I called it ammo. I was calling it ammo distribution. I was like,
my boys were the bucket refillers.
I
and they were bringing I was refilling
leave that room. It was just like there was the candy. The office closet had become the candy vault. vault.
It was
And,
insanity.
and so
The
I would just be like,
thousands of pounds of candy.
Me and a knife just shucking bags of candy and putting them in Walmart pumpkin, like trick or treat, whatever, as ammo cans. And just like people would come to get more ammo, and I would be, or one year I had ammo runners, and my ammo runners were just like, okay, take two, go, take two, go, take two, go.
Right.
And
But
so you're just praying to God you don't run out of ammo. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But it was all of the rest of the congregation being the party, right?
Yeah.
Like having that open posture, being that welcoming place, showing that love of God without expecting anything in return. You're just giving out candy in the love of God.
Or eventually anything that's not bolted down at the church.
Right.
Like,
Extra Bibles, pencils.
Just like anything.
Just take it all.
Like we ran out of candy. We sent one dude to a dollar store to buy them out of candy. And I just like handing my church card and just like candy.
And a little bitty Toyota Yaris, like this little bitty spark car. And it was like bought out all of the candy in the store.
Meanwhile, we need
growing.
something to give these people. So it was like the children's books. It was like, if it literally, I looked at some of the, if it is not bolted down, give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
There was one year,
kid,
that we bought out all of the pumpkins in every Walmart in a 50 or 100 mile radius.
100-mile radius.
100-mile radius.
For mini pumpkins, it's a 100-mile radius.
And we were the only place in 100 miles that had mini pumpkins.
Right.
Because we were going through that many. It was close to when things were shut down. And so we were doing the, what did we call it? The field trip in a box.
Yeah, field trip in a box.
And sending them to the schools, and so
and
that
Pumpkins
they had...
USA only gave us about 50 because they had a crop problem.
Yeah.
Only gave us about 50% of the mini pumpkins that we'd asked for, and so we were like,
we sent volunteers like hundreds of miles.
I mean, I remember this was one of my true truly one of the more emotional moments. I have made it to the Woodlands, Texas, hunting for pumpkins, and at the last Walmart right where the Woodlands meets Houston, which is now like, that used to be like a Gap, and now it's not.
No, it's not.
And I found one last Gaylord of mini pumpkins. It's like 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night, and like we desperately need them because like we were running like just in time delivery, right? We had no stock. And I found, I don't remember, I could probably find this text message that I sent you, Emily, of that picture of that Gaylord.
I was so excited.
And like, I found like 200 mini pumpkins or whatever it is, and I just bought them all, and I'm like, you know, I don't, you know.
And I was like, they'll be gone by Friday, but yes,
I finally got like we had them all. After we had sent like, you know, Gene and Joanne. Gene, former truck driver, would go west, you know,
like Dallas to Houston.
You know, Dan O.Y. would go north, and I had the southern range. And I seriously went to every Walmart on I-45 from Buffalo to the Woodlands. It was
wild.
And this is the excitement that is supposed to be the church with outreach. This is the party. This should be the, oh my gosh, this is going so awesome. These people are coming in. Are they like us? No. Who cares?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Pumpkins? Yes, but they're going like gangbusters. Okay. And there is excitement and there's fun. And even though, like we said, we didn't always see those people come back, there was growth happening because God was honoring what was being planted. And that's the heart of the Father, not sitting back and going, that is just so crazy. I don't think that would work here. That's not what we should be doing. And unfortunately, the reason we only focus on the first son is because I think the second son hits a little too close to home.
Right. Yes, exactly. I mean, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that, I think you're absolutely right that we see slightly too much of ourselves. And like, look, maybe not everyone's gonna be called to lead an absolute gonzo level of you know,
it was a circus. It was a great big pumpkin circus. It's okay.
It was a Muppet show.
It was.
absolute Muppet Show. It was, clearly we remember this fondly. I will tell you when we were in it, it was just
Chaos.
an absolute month of
And we're
chaos.
talking, it
was
was
a
a
Lulu.
month-long, every single day event.
Mhm.
And it was
It
crazy.
was a lot.
Fun.
It was
It
a
was a
fun.
lot.
Again, it was
Yeah, now I
also
would-
It was a lot.
some of the most fun I've had in this life of ministry
Mhm.
was that. So maybe it's not the absolute gonzo insanity that was 3 years in the patch. That's the book we should write. 3 years,
3 years in the
There
patch.
you go. There you go.
And I remember I remember each patch
Different
clear as day.
things that happened.
Mhm.
It was
Beautiful.
wild. But it is this no one likes the ugly mirror, and
Mhm.
too often the church does not look like the party.
Mhm.
We look like the judgy brother.
Yeah.
And when we focus in on those moments in our history. I mean, I brought up Lonnie Frisco, the Jesus movement is one of those movements where a whole bunch of people woke up to the fact that we're the party. I would argue that early Methodism is another one, my kind of history I know better. Lonnie was in Devil. It's Mike Cosper again. He was brought up in Devil in the Deep Blue Sea this week, and that's why Lonnie is on my mind.
Gotcha.
But the early, you can look at the early Wesleyan movement this way. You can look at the Pentecostal revival, early 1900s this way. You can, in his own way, although I end up disagreeing with Luther a lot. This is Luther too. We can point to these moments where, we start to look at the party again. And we really love those moments, and those are the moments we tell ourselves about. But most of the time, our default position seems to be the older brother.
Right.
Yeah, and we forget the fact, Jesus's first miracle, was creating an absorbent amount of wine. Hundreds of gallons out of wine.
For a party.
Out of water.
For a party.
For a wedding party.
At the
of which he and his disciples had been invited to.
Huh?
I mean, the fact that they got invited to parties meant they weren't the sour-faced.
No.
Right.
But let's remember the setup for this scripture, right? It's why the lectionary does this, and why I always make sure we read it. Here's the setup, right? It is the scribes and the Pharisees going, "This man eats with sinners." Right? That's the setup.
Oh my
the
goodness.
setup for this is a whole bunch of people. It's verses
having
1
a
through
party.
3,
Jesus
right?
is having a party with sinners.
Jesus is having a party with sinners.
Yep.
And a bunch of people show up, and a bunch of religious-y people show up and go, "This man hangs out with sinners and eats with them." And so Jesus tells this parable. And this is where, okay, it's all well and good. You should always see yourself as the younger brother. If you've ever wandered from the straight and narrow, as just about everyone has in some way, again, take hope with that. This is a tremendously hopeful scripture. This is so powerful, man. But the frame for this text is, the frame for this story is, and Luke's so much better at setting up these stories than any of the other ones. Luke is so much better at having an utterly motivated, a logically motivated Jesus. I'm looking at you, Mark. What's going on? Anyways,
not a lot of extraneous information in Mark.
None at all. Mark knows it. It's fine.
He's just succinct. That's all.
Yeah, but Luke very carefully sets up this scene of it's the Pharisees, and this is once again, it's all well and good to hate the Pharisees. It's all well and good. By the way, they're right about more than they're wrong about. They're just a little astray, not wildly astray. You want to look wildly astray, it's the Sadducees and it's the temple hierarchy. They're the one. But unfortunately, then, when you see Pharisee, you don't get to think Pharisee anymore. You have to wonder, is this the church now? Because we've done that a lot.
Well,
And they would have definitely caught the second brother was aimed at them. There
Yeah.
was not them missing that.
Oh, it's not subtle.
Because
Oh,
it
yeah.
wasn't subtle at all. And because he's pointing out, you're fussing about the sinners. This is how God reacts to the sinners. And then this is how y'all are reacting to the party that God's throwing about the sinners.
God be like this. You be like this.
Well, and so
here's the church today, folks. We found it right here in
Right.
our reading. So, what's making us do that? Could it be saved? No, it's our own evil desires.
It's our own.
Sorry,
like,
church lady. It's our own self.
everybody, you know, you love it when you get saved. And then, do you still love it when someone else gets saved?
It's great when it's your party.
It's great when
Right.
it's your party.
Well, or how many churches do we know that used to be the party or had a ministry that used to be the party and now they're not anymore?
Right.
And they're trying to get back to that, well, but that's not the way that we used to party, so that's not the right way to do it, right?
You're throwing the wrong kind of party.
So we're going to sit outside the tent and pout.
Or again, like, oh, all these people are coming to our church, but they're not the right kind.
Or
of
they're not
people.
the right giving units.
Right.
That
God,
phrase.
it's
Hate that
always-
phrase.
oh,
Ah!
Yeah.
oh, the
An
giving.
interesting aspect of my a class I had about the history of revival was that the individuals that usually were the biggest opposition or had the hardest struggle accepting God's new move were people who were alive through the previous revival or previous move of God, because of that right there. That's not how we do it.
Right.
The pastor's not wearing the right pants.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good one. But that is like a lot of, if I think about my own work and some of the people I have had to wrestle with the most were the people who were alive for the Jesus movement.
Yeah.
And then kind of modern contemporary kind of going forward looks different than that.
Yeah.
And sounds different than that. And I have felt, I mean, this is my joke about Walk to Emmaus, right? Like Walk to Emmaus contemporary.
Contemporary.
1970-ish, 80-ish.
Right, it's an outgrowth of the Jesus movement.
Yeah.
And it is kind of a United Methodist or mainline-y take on the Jesus movement. And that's beautiful. And a lot of wonderful things happen there. But it can feel real stuck in a moment because it is. And for those, I have to work really hard, right? That not everything is going to look like, for my own self, not everything is going to look like, Christian rock circa 2004.
Right.
Right. And this is where a lot of what we talked about on How to Restart a Church was, us mocking the Laser Light Show. I'm from the Laser Light Show, man. That's my show. That's the moment I come from. And while I pray, I don't, I don't transform into the stick in the mud. I feel that tension of, when we talk about things like Fresh Expressions, TM, or a thing like St. Lydia's.
Yeah.
These very conversational, very unperformative spaces. They are radically different than the last move, which was hyper performative. We on stage, these are we are putting on killer stage shows for Jesus. I mean, it was very I will tell you, our motives were, no less pure than anybody else's. We really were doing this for Jesus. I know we were putting on big concerts, and that can now say, well, it's just very performative. I'll tell you, we were in it. We were there for Jesus.
Yep.
That was the driving, we found God in that. I'll be I think I've talked about before. I find God in that music. Then now it's a little tough, but I found God in that music.
Yeah.
And I wanted more people to hear that music. And I wanted as many people as possible to kind of get lost in that music and find God there. And that is very much not the movement of this moment, because contemporary won. And what did we win? Every megachurch in the world just about is playing some version of that music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now the new movements are so much more intimate. So look much more like the Wesleyan revival, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Much more intimate, much more conversational, much less one-to-many, much more relational. And again, like, I pray to God I don't become, well, I want the laser light show. That's how we do it. But I have
Right.
to work at it, right?
Right. It's easy to get stuck in, well, this is what I like and this is what worked for me, so this is what needs to work for you, and you just need to fit into my mold of church, instead of, hi, we are the church, we are a living, evolving thing because we are the bride of Christ. And so the more people that join, the more evolving and more growing that we get
Yeah.
to do. And that's supposed to be a beautiful thing.
We should be stoked about it.
We
Right.
should be
And-
so excited when the younger brother comes and he has a whole different life experience than
And-
we've had.
And change should be good. I was recently at a meeting where they were doing different style music and all of that. And then they do this little, we've got this fun little medley that we're going to sing and all that. And it was good. And everybody got into it and they enjoyed it. But I was like, wait, I know this. This is the medley from Sister Act, where they turned the 50s and all those songs into Christian songs. This is literally straight up from, and I'm rolling and all, but you know what? They were having fun with it and they were getting into it and they're praising God, and that's okay. But things are changing. Things are changing so much. I'd heard this recently and I looked it up to be able to tell it again. So historically, throughout the move of modern church stuff, women have outpaced men in attendance.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And since 2000, it was something like 47 to 38%. 2022, men slowly started growing.
Interesting.
In that, in 22, it was 35 to 30%. Last year, 2024, it was 30% of men were attending weekly compared to 27% of women.
Interesting.
Which is an interesting dynamic when you think of what you have going. And so, though it's a tendency to have more things aimed at women because you generally see women being better in attendance, however, there is an upswing in that, and that's great.
Well,
it's awesome. I mean, yes, it would be great if they were all at the same percentage, but yeah.
Well, but I think that is somewhat tells the story of a more egalitarian society. One of the reasons why, one of the things that drove kind of greater religious attendance among women is it was one of the few places for them to have community.
Right.
You think of, what is the backbone of the volunteer base of just about every United Methodist Church ever imagined was stay-at-home moms.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so what do you do in a world where fewer moms have the option, whether they want to or not, fewer moms have the economic option to stay home, whether they are, even if they are, two-parent, even in two-parent households, most two-parent households, could not manage to be single income.
Yeah.
And the nature of children's activities have, also meant that even if you do have a stay-at-home mom, they may not have any more time for you than they would if they were working.
Right.
And so I wonder if that's a part of this is we are seeing a more egalitarian society where men are no more likely to have time than women do.
Yeah.
And so maybe that speaks to some of the evening out.
Maybe.
Because
it'd be interesting to study.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the overall percentage is down, but it's balanced more.
Right. Which, and certainly it is down, right? And if a church says they're growing, I hope that they are, but a lot of churches that say they're growing are just stealing sheep, right?
It's just people church hopping
from somewhere else.
It's just, you know, and I've seen this happen both ways. You either left the medium-sized church to join the mega church, or left the mega church to join the medium-sized church. There's a real, like, it's, you know, I love feeling this, especially in this town where, you know, look, there'd be a lot of mega churches,
Yeah.
a lot of mega churches. Even like every denomination has their mega church. Like one of the largest Episcopal churches in the world is in Houston, Texas. It's where my son does choir. You know, two of the kind of top 20 United Methodist churches are here in Houston. St. Luke's and Chapelwood, right? Like we got, not to mention Joel, not to mention, you know, Second Baptist and its 14 locations. And the ad for Second Baptist when I was a kid was, it's not like a church, it's like a small town. And then you run the numbers and it literally has the population of a small town.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And so, you know, look, they're these massive churches, but a lot of their growth is starting to peter out, and a lot of their growth had always been driven by, they advertise the new baptisms, and those are real, I'm sure, but a lot of it was just stealing the sheep.
Yeah. Or rebaptisms. Because
Sure.
you didn't do right the first time. But you know, yeah.
Sure.
What we see the
Dunk 'em
party
early and
being
often.
here is the party is being over the lost ones coming back.
Right. Well, and it's about recognizing that that's what the church is really meant to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really meant to be is not a collection of the found, but the party for the ones who have most recently been found.
Right.
Yes. And then we should be excited about what excites the Father's heart.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Yes.
And the thing that God, in the character of the Father in this story, gets super stoked about is, he says it twice, your brother that was dead is back.
Dead. Gone.
Dead.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And by the way, like a detail to mention, when the younger son goes to his father and like, hi, can I have my inheritance? That is the first century equivalent of saying, hi, Dad, can you be dead?
Right.
Wish you were dead.
It's literally, you're dead to me. Mm-hmm. Can I cash out? You know, this poor father, right, does it. But like, this is a text about grace.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it is also a challenge for us to be excited about that grace.
Right.
Yeah.
And there is that edge of, remember that this is the like, we should be making new relationships. We shouldn't just be hoping that people will jump ship to us.
Right. Well, and we're so good at trying to fill out spreadsheets and get the numbers and that. Like there's so many churches that are like, well, but we have 150 people now. Like, okay, but are you the party? Are you the party? Or are you just filling out a spreadsheet?
Right. Well, and that's what, you know, that's one of the things that made our season at Servants of Christ so much fun. Is that Spanish service was very clearly the party.
Yes.
And, you know, the number of, you know, and they were all new baptisms, the number of new baptisms from young adults and, you know, kind of folks in their 30s and 40s who had found their way to this country, found their way in this church, and found something they weren't expecting to find. Like that is, that
was the goal.
That was the goal.
That's
right?
the goal.
And I think when I'd like to think that the church memories that we remember fondly are the times when we've been able to be the party.
Right.
But to always ride that challenge, because it can, like, church life can become, especially when you get to a scale or a complexity, it can be about making the machine go.
Right.
Yeah.
And even not in a judgmental way, but just like, hey, the machine's got to go.
Right.
And this is a text that is also about what is this machine for?
Mm-hmm.
It's to be the party who when the Father, when God brings someone new to the party, is just so overwhelmingly stoked,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're the ring, we're the robe, we're the fatted calf, we're the party goers, we're the,
Get your noisemakers.
get your
Yes.
noisemakers, and be really annoying to stuck in their way Christians.
We had a
This
Purim.
party is making so much noise. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
You could be in there. Like, come on down.
We did that this past weekend. We had a little Purim celebration where you go through the reading of Esther and you pass out noisemakers. And anytime Esther and Mordecai is mentioned, you cheer. And when Haman is mentioned, you boo. And we just had a blast. And it was fun. And we had some people in the neighborhood come and they said, "Man, I've never heard a Bible story told like that." And of course I dressed up in Bible character outfit and just
Well, you're supposed to dress in costume.
Yes.
If it's
we had people,
right?
yes.
Because again,
Right.
it's God in hidden places.
Exactly.
Right.
And so it was just a lot of fun. And you love the Esther story.
Sure. Yeah, I do.
I mean,
absolutely.
I think you
I have a
related
daughter
to
largely
Esther.
named after the Maccabees Esther music video.
Yes. And we played some Maccabees. And it was just, we're trying to get this idea of it's okay to have fun as a Christian.
Yeah.
Go figure.
We should be, again, this is a story about like exuberant, bordering on like improprietous level of excitement.
Yes.
Like, as you were laying out at the top, Scott, like the Father here, like drops. This is a society of decorum and honor, and he drops all decorum and he drops all social position, and he just like loses it, comma positive, for the sake of this person who tried to sever relationship, who should be punished in coming back, and instead you get this like extreme level of joy that this dude came back, this extreme level of excitement, and then let's keep the party going.
Right, that we are invited into that joy, into that party, to participate in that. Don't miss out on that joy. Don't miss out on the party.
How often I've heard people talk about, well, that's not how you're supposed to act in church. That's not how you're supposed to.
According to who?
And they shouldn't be making noise with the tambourines or whatever. But here's the thing. You have examples like this of the Father reacting. You have examples of the lady with the alabaster jar, expensive.
Yep.
Yes.
Exuberant, extravagant worship.
Yes.
David dancing in his ephod. He was in his skivvies, y'all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the people that we see them going, hey, yeah, that's how you're supposed to worship. That's how you're supposed to worship. And it's like, wait, we are?
Yeah. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And the thing is, we have every reason to. We yell, we scream, we get excited. At least, y'all won't remember. But back when Dallas won Super Bowls.
I have no idea what
that's or anyone, teams or things like that. Hey. Think about how we act like that and how we dress up and we scream and we holler.
Mm-hmm.
How much more wonderful is it when someone is saved from eternity, separated from God because they realize what God has been reaching out to them?
Right.
How much more excited should we be?
And I get, right, we're always navigating, and I suspect failing, but we're always navigating, right? Like, how do we make God feel sacred, and how do we make God feel relational?
Accessible. Yeah.
Accessible. Because it's both. It is.
It's both. It's a both and, not an either or. Or as to use these great words that I had to look up in seminary, the aseity of God versus the promeity of God.
Bromeity, yes.
This is aseity as an ascension, promeity as Prometheus, right? Like the highness and the lowness. It was like, like the professor's like, why did you just say that? Like I had to look this up.
And then you have the bromeity, which refers to the buddy Jesus.
Yeah, the buddy Jesus. Yeah, that's the Jesus, with the tuxedo shirt, the T-shirt that looks like a tuxedo. It says, I'm kind of fancy, but I'm also here to party. That's bromeity. Thank you. Yes. But like we are always navigating, and I suspect failing at that.
Right.
And where I wonder, right, and I don't know the answer to this, because I certainly, in my own way, have found God in beautiful architecture, and a truly well-built cathedral is a marvel of dedication to God. I'm going to be in France in a few months, and I am looking forward to seeing Notre Dame rebuilt.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that. This is a space I've been in before. Before it was, I never saw it destroyed, but only pictures. But like, this is a space I know really well, and I suspect it will be a religious moment. Going to that space, like I get that, right? But we can reflect on God's grandeur, the aseity of God, but that doesn't mean that then everything, the only way to honor God is through decorum. Frankly, I think that's the actual point, right? Anytime we are getting to that place where we say the only way to honor God is blank, right? Because I remember the difficult conversations about using call and response liturgy at Grace Church, the People of the Second Chance, right? Because that's not how it was
done.
That's not how, that's dead. That's not like
We're not
well,
that type of church.
Dude, sometimes I've found life in liturgy, right? Because we were just creating the new law. We were just creating the new thing you can't do. Is well, we can't do that. Like, well, why not? Like, why have we've just put God in a, like, this is,
we just put him in a different box.
Worship too. We just put God in a different box.
Yep.
Don't put God in a box. Very clearly, in this story, God breaks entirely out of the box. The creator of the universe does not flip out over the return of one, and yet that's exactly what happens. Anyways, if you have thoughts on all of this, email us, thegoodnessofgodpod@gmail.com. That is thegoodnessofgodpod@gmail.com. We are the Divine Provisions Co., and Lord knows we need your help. Like, comment, subscribe, leave us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Share something you found meaningful. We've got a ton of short form content that's been hitting over the past 2-3 weeks. Those are eminently shareable. We got stuff. Share with people if you found it meaningful. All of that helps this work go further, and in that way helps us be more sustainable. If you'd like to become financially involved in the work that we do, Lord knows we need that too. These things cost money, and you can go to divineprovisions.co and click the donate button if you would like. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Blue Sky, at Divine Provisions Co., and at Divine Provisions C on TikTok. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. We'll see you next time.